According to a 2023 Pew Research Center report on online dating in America, roughly 1 in 3 adults, over 60 in the United States, is currently single. That is not a small number. And most of them last dated when a phone call was still the only way to ask someone out. When you last dated, probably somewhere in your late 20s or early 30s, there was a sequence everyone understood. You met someone. You called. You went out. A few weeks in, you knew where you stood. Nobody had to name it. The relationship had a shape, and both people could see it. The women I talk to who are stepping back into this after long marriages are not confused because they are behind. They are confused because they are walking into a room where the furniture has been completely rearranged in the dark. They know how to be in a room, they just cannot find the chair. This conversation is about finding the chair. Not which apps to use, not how to text back. What has actually changed at the level that matters? How connection is built, read, and named now, and why understanding that changes everything about how you walk back in. Think about the last time you dated someone. Really think about it. You met. You waited for a call. The call came. You made a plan, you went somewhere, and at some point, without having to ask, you knew where you stood. That was the whole process. Visible, linear, human. That process is gone. Not gone the way fashions change. Gone the way train stations replaced horse carriages. The infrastructure itself changed. Nobody sent you a memo. According to a 2023 Pew Research Center report on online dating in America, roughly 3 in 10 U.S. adults say they have used a dating app or website. Among adults over 50, that number has grown steadily over the past decade. The platform is now the front door. If you have not walked through that door yet, you are not standing in 1987 anymore. You are standing outside a building that was remodeled while you were inside a different one. Here is what the change actually looks like in practice. The phone call as a first move is gone. Exclusivity after a few dates is no longer assumed. It has to be negotiated out loud, which is a conversation most women in long marriages never once had to have. And the relationship no longer has a visible shape that both people simply grow into. You can go on 6 dates with someone and still have no idea what you are to each other. What replaced all of that is a language most women were never taught. Apps, text frequency, the gap between being moved from app to phone call, and what that gap means. Whether a silence is indifference or just a busy Tuesday, none of it is written down anywhere. And all of it matters. The conversation that trips up the most women is not the first date. It is the one that had to be invented entirely after 1990. What are we? Exactly. The last time they dated, that question answered itself. You just knew. Now you have to ask. And asking feels strange when you were never taught that asking was necessary. Not because they are naive, not because they are behind. Because the last time they navigated this terrain, the rules were visible, shared, agreed upon without ever being said aloud. Now the rules are invisible. They live in texting frequency, in how quickly someone moves from app to phone call, in whether silence means indifference or just a busy Tuesday. It is genuinely confusing. Being confused is not the same as being unprepared. You are simply reading a map that no longer matches the terrain. The first step is not to judge yourself for that. It is to get a better map. The women I have watched navigate this well are not the ones who mastered every app or memorized every new rule. They are the ones who stopped expecting the terrain to look like it used to and started asking better questions about what was actually in front of them. That shift is the whole game. But before any of that matters, there is something most dating advice skips entirely. You are not walking back into this as yourself. You are walking back in as someone you have not fully met yet. Pauline Boss, a family therapist and researcher at the University of Minnesota, who introduced the concept of ambiguous loss in her 1999 book of the same name, spent decades studying what happens when people lose something they cannot fully grieve. A marriage ends, whether by death or divorce. A woman does not only lose a husband, she loses the structure that partly told her who she was: wife, partner, the person who knew where everything was kept, the one who held the calendar in her head. That loss is real. It is quiet. Here is what I have noticed talking with women who have been through this. Most of them move from the end of a marriage into the beginning of dating without ever stopping in the middle. The middle is uncomfortable. It is the space where you do not have a role yet, and you have not chosen a new one. So the instinct is to fill it quickly. A new relationship feels like it fills it. But it does not. Just covers it. And here is the cost of that. You bring a version of yourself into a new relationship that has not been examined yet. You bring habits from the old marriage that served you then but may not serve you now. You bring tolerances you developed over decades that you never actually chose. You bring a definition of good relationship that was written in a different era of your life. None of that is shameful. It is just worth seeing. Before you step back in, I want to offer you 3 things to sit with. Not answer. Sit with. What did you value most in your marriage that you want to carry forward? Not the person. The quality, the feeling, the specific thing that made you feel seen. What did you accept for years that you now know, without any doubt, you do not want again? Not what you are supposed to say. What you actually know. And the last one is the question I find most women have never been asked out loud. Do you want someone to add to your life or someone to share it with? Those are not the same thing. One assumes your life has a gap. The other assumes your life is already whole. At 28, you did not have the data to answer those questions. You had hope and instinct and the particular blindness of youth. At 62, you have something rarer. You have evidence. You have lived long enough inside a relationship to know what it actually costs and what it actually gives. That is not baggage. That is calibration. The woman who takes 6 months to sit with those 3 questions before she opens a dating profile is not wasting time. She is doing the most important work of the whole process. You do not need to find yourself before you date again. But you do need to at least introduce yourself to yourself first. There is one more thing worth understanding before you start. Not about the rules. About yourself. Here is a word nobody uses when they talk about dating again at 62. Calibration. They use words like brave or hopeful, or, if they are being less kind, desperate. Dean, what they almost never say is, you are more calibrated right now than you have ever been in your life. Carl Pillemer, a gerontologist at Cornell University who spent over a decade interviewing more than 700 older Americans for his legacy project, found something that keeps coming up across all his research. People in their 60s and 70s did not just know more about relationships. They could read them faster. They had seen enough to know the difference between kindness that was real and kindness that was performed. That is not a small thing. That is everything. When you were 28, you had hope. You had energy. June, what you did not have was enough data. You had not yet seen what a man looks like at month 6 versus month 6 weeks. You had not learned how to tell the difference between someone who is patient and someone who is just waiting for you to stop asking for things. You had not watched a dinner table silence long enough to know whether it was comfortable or controlling. You know those things now. You know what it feels like when your stomach tightens for no reason you can name. You know the difference between being tired and being worn down. You know that a man who never apologizes is not a man who never makes mistakes. You do not need to add that knowledge to yourself. You already have it. The narrative that gets handed to women re-entering dating after 60 is a scarcity narrative. Fewer options, less time, more baggage. I want to push back on that directly, because I think it does real harm. When you believe you have less, you negotiate from less. You overlook things you should not overlook. You feel grateful when you should feel discerning. What 30 years of lived experience actually gives you is not baggage. It is a finely tuned instrument. The question is whether you pick it up and use it. You are not the woman who walked into her first marriage not knowing what she was walking into. You are the woman who knows exactly what questions to ask, who understands that presence matters more than promises. Ian, who has been lonely enough to know that the wrong company is lonelier than no company at all. That is not a smaller thing than what you had at 28. That is a bigger one. It is something you have never done before. Because the woman who dated at 28 and the woman sitting here now are not the same person. The world she is walking back into is not the same world. The thing she is looking for, if she is honest with herself, is not what she was looking for the first time. That gap between who you were then and who you are now is not a problem to solve. It is the whole point. The rules have changed. You have changed. And for the first time, you get to decide what the new rules look like for you. The last time you did this, you waited for a phone call. You did not know what it would bring. You did not know who was on the other end of it, not really. You just waited and hoped and trusted that something good might be coming. That has not changed. You still do not know what is coming. Nobody does. But you know something now that you did not know then. You know exactly who is going to pick up the phone. If this conversation helped you think more clearly about what is ahead, I would be glad if you stayed. There is more of this kind of thinking on the channel. For anyone still figuring out what this next chapter actually looks like.